Welcome to The Hook,
where music and art come together
with the people that created it. I'm Johni.
I'm Jess.
You're on The Hook.
Today on The Hook, we're stepping into a world where creativity doesn't stay in one lane. It moves between art, music, and something a little more cosmic.
We're hanging out with visual artist Mary McNeill and Fluffy, who has lived just about every version of life behind the scenes in music that you can imagine.
Mary's work invites you into this imaginative, spiritual space.
And Fluffy brings the stories from the road, the studio, and everything in between.
This one's about creativity, loss, reinvention, and the magic that connects it all.
Mary McNeill and Fluffy, you're on The Hook.
We're going to kick this off to Mary, and I want to know if someone could step inside your creative world, your space, your energy, your imagination, what would they experience?
Psychosis, beautiful colors and music and pretty shiny things, bells, fairies, aliens.
Dragons.
Dragons.
Fluffy, what's one moment from your life on the road or in the studio where you thought, this doesn't even feel real?
I mean, there are literally thousands, but the one that immediately jumps to mind is anytime I'm in Haunted Hollow with TR3 recording, because that feels like you're in church. It feels like a spiritual thing. I've been in the studio with a lot of bands, and a lot of times it's like work. It's like, somebody's running around, smoking, drinking, whatever they're doing. You're rounding people up, trying to get them to pay attention. We need you now. We don't need you now, blah, blah, blah. But when I'm there with TR3, we're all doing that stuff. Everybody's drinking and running around. But there's this vibe there that it's magical. It's like the mill. The mill has that same kind of weird magical thing. Mary and I noticed it the very first second we were there, I think the first time we went. But when I go into Haunted Hollow with TR3 to record, it feels like the closest to God I'm ever going to be. I don't know how to explain it other than that. I can't put it into words. It's just a feel. Look, I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. It's stupid ones like, Robert Smith coming out of an airport to tell you thank you for driving him around all weekend, which doesn't mean anything in and of itself because lots of people thank me for helping them. But then when he walks away, the tour manager turns to you and goes, Fluffy, I've never seen him ever thank anyone for anything. The fact that he walked out of that airport just to thank you for driving him around all weekend is pretty big.
Wow.
So things like that feel special, but they don't compare to what I was trying. That's not going to make me cry. But I do. There are lots of them like that. And they're just things you can't, I guess you could write them all down, but you just sit there and you think about them, but it's not a big enough story to tell people. You don't want to, hi, Robert Smith thanked me once. Oh, really? It's like,
I don't know. I wouldn't mind if Robert Smith thanked me.
So, and all you did was drive him around, and
That's awesome.
So
all you did was drive him around being you.
Right.
Well, and that's part of it.
It's who you are.
And to that thing, the Wallflowers, what's his name? Jacob Dylan?
I love the Wallflowers.
I was not a fan of the Wallflowers. It's not my thing. And when I hate something, I don't hate it. It's not something I put on. It appeals to me now. But the Wallflowers were playing at 930 Club, and my job was to drive him around. And of course, he's the only one who gets driven around because the other guys are just other people in the Wallflowers. Can anyone else name someone else in the Wallflowers? No, we all know it's Jacob Dylan.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I'm driving him around back and forth to his hotel from the 930 Club in my little RAV4, and I'm thinking, I'm not already a fan of the band, I didn't buy your album, so I don't really feel like I have a lot to talk about. And it's Dylan's son. What do you say? I love your dad. What do you say to Jacob Dylan? So I'm thinking there's not going to be a lot to talk about. It's going to be a quiet trip. So I try to put him in the back seat. I have a 4-door. But he's like, no, I want to sit up front. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he starts talking to me. And he's questioning me the whole way. And we spent the rest of the day with him interviewing me in my RAV4 driving back and forth to 930 Club in the hotel. And he turned out to be the sweetest, nicest, most down-to-earth guy in the world. Bob Dylan's son was the nicest, sweetest guy in the world. Thank you for everything. Sat up front with me, talked to me, didn't want to talk about himself, wanted to know about me. It was great. And so just by his personality, I became a Jacob Dylan fan because that's how that happens. And I went into it not expecting anything. So, but yeah.
Daddy taught him right.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure he did. He's just a sweet guy, one of the sweetest guys I've ever met. And that comes from somebody who's not a fan. So there's no like bleed over of, oh, I like him so much. I just think he's a super sweet. He's somebody I met that's exactly not what I expected they would be.
I mean, we need to explain that Fluffy was a tour manager.
I started as a doorman at 930 Club, and I was DJ'd there. At the old club, I was just a doorman. All those people trained. By the time they opened the new 930 Club, I had been a doorman long enough that now I'm training all the doormen. I also started training all their merch people. I had been offered the manager position like 3 times, but because I was traveling on the road, I had told them, they said, like, do I have to come off the road? And they were like, of course, if you're going to be the manager of this club, you're going to have to stop touring. And I didn't want to stop touring. So I just stayed in that position. But I was happy to, because that's what I wanted to do. The road is literally what I wanted to do my whole life, as I was telling you outside. I figured out early on, this is what I want to do. I want to work with bands. I want to be a part of this. And I knew I wasn't the creative force. I mean, I have a creative force, but it's just not like that. So I was like, I'm going to be the support. I'm going to make sure they get their message out, and that way I'm contributing. My part is behind the scenes, and no one will know me, but that's all I need.
Y'all have so much, the both of you, that I don't even know if we can unpack it all. There's so much talent sitting at this table.
Talent, I don't know, but there's just so many stories, and they're all background stories. Mm-hmm. And that's how she and I stay on the phone for that 2-hour conversation, because we're just talking to each other. We'll see where it goes, but yeah it's going to.
And we continually find out new things about each other because we're so focused on work and you know what we're supposed to be doing together to make the tour happen or whatever. And previously, we didn't really get to know who each other is. We got to know how to work together. And then I started unpacking Fluffy about a year ago. And it was like every conversation that we had would leave me speechless. My jaw would be dropped open because we would be talking about religion or spirituality or whatever. And Fluffy's like, you know, I lived in a monastery. I'm like, what? I jokingly called him Fluffy Gump because if I didn't know that he tells the truth, like he's an honest person, I would just think that he's making up all these stories, but he's not. And then every once in a while, I'll come out with a zinger of my own. Yeah. I'm like,
she's got some Memphis stories I've heard. So
I did.
That's what I said. That's how
tequila shots with Phil Everly from the Everly Brothers.
Wow.
It was at my brother's Halloween party. Phil Everly and his wife lived in the neighborhood, and Phil Everly came dressed as Phil Everly from the 60s in that iconic white suit, and his wife was dressed as Cyndi Lauper.
Nice.
And I felt comfortable enough because I knew that he was, you know, friends with my brother and sister-in-law. That was a really cool. That's like, I'm going to stick this in my back pocket.
Absolutely.
I told him the other day, and he's like, well, you know, you can introduce yourself as, hi, I'm Mary. I had tequila shots with Phil Everly. But I don't do that.
My big story was about meeting Diddy, and that's gone south.
Yeah, now you can't share it anymore.
Man.
Did it involve body oil?
It did not.
Did you get
I don't think
invited to a
anyone's
white
going to
party?
believe you if it didn't involve body oil.
Well, it was at a radio station.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
yeah.
still.
Yeah.
With that much body oil, I'm sure he had it on him at all.
The little pocket version.
Yeah, right.
Little pocket version.
He's putting it on his hands while he's talking to you.
I want to know a little about what the real version of life on the road is.
It's funny, I was thinking about this earlier. I've been on the road with so many different bands, and it's different with each one. You've got all these energies going. I think it's what you bring to it or what I bring to it that becomes my thread that travels through all of those things. And it's finding your place. You become a cog in the machine, but that's your job. In a crew of 24 people, there are 24 cogs that got to work perfectly together for this timepiece. You know, if you think about the whole thing coming off without a hitch is like a clock. And if one piece goes out of whack, it starts to affect everything else. I try to bring this positivity to it, and I try not to show like I wait till I get to my room to let out my frustrations about what has gone on. I try not to bring that into the group dynamic. But if I had to sum it up in the simplest terms, it's the brotherhood that I feel. And that could be with women or men. I just mean it as a group of people with a like mind, all trying to get the same thing done. And I've worked on crews where there wasn't that, and it's not fun. And I don't usually stay with those projects very long if it just doesn't feel like it's working. I've been lucky to work for Tim since 1999. Tim is a magical being. He finds the best people. And I don't say that to fly my own flag. He finds good people, and they gravitate toward him because he's got this energy. Like I've said it a million times to people, you could offer me more money and I wouldn't quit this job because my happiness in this place doing this is more important than the money. Because I've done not just tour manager, I've been personal assistant, I've been a roadie, I've been the guitar tech, the drum tech, I've done every job you can do backstage and drive. And again, I don't always like to give myself a title. I mean, I have a title with Tim, it's tour manager, but I just want everything to get done. So I find that thing that needs to get done and I make sure it gets done so that they can do what they do without them having to worry about it.
Explain TR3 for anybody that's not.
I was just going to say that because you're on the hook with Johni and Jess.
If you're a musician, artist, or creative, your website shouldn't look like an afterthought.
Your brand is your stage, and your website is often the first place people decide if you're the real deal.
River City Consulting builds websites specifically for creatives, musicians, performers, and artists who need an online presence that matches their talent.
They're also the official website agency for the Hook podcast.
Learn more at rivercityamplified.com. That's rivercityamplified.com. And use promo code The Hook for serious savings.
With you being a road manager for Tim, when Tim tours with Dave Matthews, do you...
No. You got to remember, when he first hired me, he didn't know me. So he didn't know what to expect. You know, I'm sure he's come to figure out that, yeah, he's definitely not around for the DMB tickets. But in the beginning, he didn't know. So we kind of sat down and he said, I'm trying to hire somebody to work for me. So the guy who tour managed before me was a guy named David Wellbeloved. He worked for me at 930 Club. He was a doorman at 930 Club who I trained. So I was his boss at his day job. But he also knew about my work ethic. So when he was looking for a roadie to do merch and set up the gear, David called me and said, hey, Flippy, would you want to come on the road with me and this guy, Tim Reynolds? And I said, I don't know, what's he do? He goes, oh, he plays in Dave Matthews Band. And I was like, no, that's not my cup of tea. I have to enjoy what I'm doing for it to be. I don't want to just get a job to have a job. I want to feel like I'm a part of it. So I want to work for something that I enjoy, that every night I'm going to go, oh, this is cool. This was cool. This was worth it. I feel like I'm putting good out in the world. So I kept turning the job down. So finally, the third time, Tim calls me and was like, oh, I think they tell me you got this hang up on the fact that I'm in the band, and I'm not really in the band. I never joined the band. I'm just a friend of Dave's who helped him out in the beginning, and I do my own thing. And it was like 2 weeks before the tour was going to start. It was a 2-month tour. And I said, you know, Tim, I'll do it just so you don't have to keep stressing about this person, but I think you should keep looking and putting out feelers. But I'll start the tour, and then if you can find somebody, you know, you should keep looking. And I don't know if he did or not. I have no idea. I never talked to him about it. But I agreed to start the tour and at least get as far into it.
And here we are.
And I kind of told myself, if I have to go the whole 2 months, I guess I could, but I wasn't looking forward to it. And then he picked me up at the train station that first day, and I met him, and I thought, oh, cool guy. And I remember thinking, he doesn't look like he's in the Dave Matthews Band. we went and we played in Northampton, Massachusetts was my first gig with a different TR3. So this was two guys named Johnny and Houston. When I got hired by Tim, I worked for what was the Charlottesville TR3. That only lasted about the first year, and then it was all acoustic. So we got to the gig in Northampton. We unpacked. They went in the dressing room. I set up everything on stage, and they played their show. And the show was all Tim originals and 2 covers. And the 2 covers were T-Rex and Prodigy. And I was like, the guy from Dave Matthews Band is covering T-Rex. I mean, I can totally hang with it. So I told him after the show, I said, I can totally hang with this. I'm good. You don't need to keep looking. This is totally my thing. He goes, I thought you might like it. They told me what you listened to. So, and then later in that tour, Dave Wellbeloved got a phone call. We were in Nashville, and David Wellbeloved got a call that his mother had been diagnosed with cancer. So David decided he should go home. Turned out it was a good thing he did because his mother ended up passing before we got off the tour. But they came to my room in Nashville and said, hey, David thinks he's going to go home. Do you think you would finish the tour as tour manager? And that's how I technically became the tour manager for Tim and TR3. But that ended that lineup of TR3. Tim started doing solo shows. So then this guy, John Beckner, who owns the mill now, booked Tim to play in his living room in the Outer Banks with Stanley Jordan. So me and Tim Rue and Tim went to the Outer Banks and did this show. And John turned out to be one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. That's why we're still friends today. He has helped me out more than almost anybody else on the Outer Banks, probably outside of the guys in TR3. So Tim went home, talked to his then wife, Diane, who had grown up in Charlottesville and wanted to go to the Outer Banks for a visit because she'd done that her whole life from Charlottesville. So they came out for a vacation and never went home. Literally packed to come for a couple weeks. John found him a house on the beach to hang out in. And then they were like, I think we should just stay here. Because Diane was like, I can live anywhere. You're always on the road. And so Tim was like, sure. So they kind of stayed. And then Tim called me in D.C. I was still working at 930 Club when I wasn't on the road. And he called me and said, Fluffy, you got to move down here. I just met the new TR3. And I was like, oh, really? And I wasn't skeptical because I know Tim. Like, if Tim says he met some guys and Tim's telling me these are the, I mean, I quit my job and moved to the Outer Banks just on Tim's word. And when I met him, it was like magic. Mm-hmm. And so that is the TR3 that I'm talking about now. When we talk about TR3, it's Mick, Dan, and Tim, that little core unit. And I think Tim was magically blessed to meet these 2 guys who have played together forever on the Outer Banks and know each other's everything inside and out. And they were exactly what Tim needed. I remember after like the first year with him, I remember Tim telling me, he said, Fluffy, I've had like 4 or 5 iterations of TR3 over my life. And I've always had like, this version of TR3 played the metal stuff really good, and this version was much more jazz-oriented. But there was never anybody who could do everything Tim did with a level of proficiency. It's hard to find people who can play jazz as well as they can play metal, yeah, and he did with Mick and Dan, and he just found his magic. It's not just for us, but for them. Watching the 3 of them in the studio, you can see Mick and Dan have their input, but they defer to Tim. Because Tim has everything written in his head when they go in there. It's not out on paper. He doesn't know how to write music. But he goes in there and he describes something to Dan. Dan will be sitting behind the drums and he'll just start going, doot, doot, doot. He'll play it and Tim will go, no, it's a little more whatever, Tim will say. And Dan will do it. And he goes, yeah, like that. And then Tim will pick up the guitar and start playing what he heard in his head. And go, yeah, that's it. And then Mick will start to play something. And go, oh, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. And it's like you watch it come together, and it's magical like that. It's never a struggle. I've never seen them argue in the studio. Talk to a band who's recorded an album. Oh, yeah, there are always arguments about this or that. I've never seen them argue in the studio, ever. I've never seen them, more me, more less me. It's like, no, we are doing this harmonious trio thing. that is Tim's vision, and Mick and Dan get that, which is important. Neither of them have enough ego to say, oh, there's not enough bass, or this song doesn't have bass, or whatever. It's just, no, what is the vision? We are just trying to help Tim get his vision across, which identifies with me, because that's all I'm trying to do. They're doing it in their way. I'm doing it in my way. We are all cogs in Tim's machine, including her, just trying to get Tim's vision across because we believe in Tim. We know what he's got to give to the world, and we want to get it out there. And if 1 million people listen, that's even better. But I don't think he cares if he sells 50 records or 1 million records. He just wants to make his music. And that appeals to me from an artist standpoint. I don't want somebody who's just doing what the record company tells them. That's not serving my soul. Like, if you listen to 5 different Tim albums, you're going to go, these are all the same person? Just like her paintings all look different. He's just getting what's out of him in the sound. And it's not about, trying to sound like Tim Reynolds. He's trying to sound like Birds. This is what's here, and I'm going to get it out. It's really amazing.
And I listen to music visually. So I listen to a lot of ambient music and binaural beats. I mean, I grew up on the Beatles. I was obsessed with the Beatles and Led Zeppelin. I was really into Led Zeppelin. But the first artist that I feel like I connected to visually was Sufjan Stevens and his album, Come On Feel the Illinois. His songwriting, each individual element is very simplistic, but all together, it creates this cacophony of sound and also visuals. I can see visuals whenever I'm listening to Sufjan. And it's the same way with Tim Reynolds, and the majority of his music is instrumental. I've always seen music. I paint with music, specific music. I pick out certain music. When I was in my early 20s, it was exclusively Billie Holiday. I just wanted to paint her voice. I wanted to put her voice on canvas.
Some people don't need to know that. I want to know that. That, to me, I want to read a book about Mary the painter, Mary McNeill's process, and go, wow, she was listening to Billie Holiday, whatever she was listening to, and she painted that. Because you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put that song on, and I'm going to look at her painting, and I'm going to go where her headspace is. So, I mean, both are, I'm getting them too, just talking about it. But, neither is right or wrong. You know, I understand her. I want to experience it on its own. But me, I want to go deeper, especially not being the creative one. I want to understand the creative one's process. So I want to get as deep in there as I can. I want to see what affected them. Oh, she was listening to that song? I'm going to put that song and see if it makes me look at it differently. Because you have your ways of looking at anything, but then when you put it on and see what they were listening to while there, you might see something completely different. Like, oh, that changes the whole mood. It was very happy to me then, but now it's got a much more somber tone.
When do you remember the first time that you listened to music and saw those visuals come along with it?
I feel like I started seeing music when I got involved in the music industry, because I became jaded really, really quickly with the whole networking thing. And there were some people who would be like, oh, you work for this company? That's so cool. Can you get me in the door or whatever? And then other people would be like, oh, you're just the receptionist. So I became jaded really quickly. The music industry is my job. Art is my life. And I started painting a lot. And when I was listening to Billie Holiday, I was doing this series called Jazz Band of Angels, because my mom has always prayed a hedge of thorns and band of angels around me. And I always thought, well, what kind of angels do I have? And they're always, probably jazz musicians. And in my newer stuff, it's dead armadillos and aliens and guardian aliens. I have a lot of different types of angels. I visualize them in different ways. I believe it was in my early 20s. It's almost like I wanted to clean the music industry out of my head when I stopped working, because it just felt a little bit icky. Just what can you get for me? I'm a songwriter. What can you do for me? And that's not my personality. Like, I really thought, I'm not sure if I'm cut out for this world. Social anxiety. I don't want to go, air quotes, backstage. In fact, please don't make me. Do I have to? I'm not a snob. I'm just very introverted.
I took the job at 930 Club with one goal and purpose: to be able to go into crowds. And it's why, and even tour managing and working, I have a purpose for being there. And that is a great thing, because I'm like her. I don't want to go to a crowded room and stand in a room with a bunch of people. I'm uncomfortable. I would prefer to work the show than go stand in the show and watch the show, because I'm like, all these people. It's really, for me personally. But you give me a job, it's like, Fluffy, you need to get to the dressing room. They have an emergency. This is my job. I have to do it. I took these kinds of jobs because they get me into places that I wouldn't want to go on my own.
So y'all are staying at the Crossmill Art Gallery. And whenever I'm there, and I'm there quite a lot for a lot of the musicians that come in.
We have pictures together there.
Yes, we do. Well, the Crossmill is an amazing space for creatives.
It is. The energy there is off the chain. We felt it from the second we turned onto the property the first time we went there. I told her this morning, I was only there 2 hours before I was seeing stuff, not physical stuff, but seeing things happen, going, yep, it's here. Whatever it is, it's happening already. It's just there. That place has a spiritual vibe. That's like a cathedral of art in all its forms. I think John's bringing it more into the music world. I think it started from Witt.
Nancy
Witt. She did sculpture. She did painting.
And her children. She raised her children as artists.
So that energy is in that space.
It's beautiful.
And that is a creative energy. It's not just an artist energy. It's a creative energy. So that has to affect everybody. I believe if musicians come in there, they're going to be like, they might not even notice that they're being affected by it. I watch people I know's mood change in that place. Like, wow, he seems a lot friendlier. I feel like that place affects people in some way, and they may not be aware of it, but I'm aware that they're different than when I normally see them in whatever setting I normally see them in.
So TJ Peterson and Joey Davis band, they stay there, and we had them on the show, and they both were like, we wrote music like crazy.
Well, I told my friend, one of my friends that's here this weekend, I told her on the way up, you know, the land, the building, everything on this property is alive. Treat it with respect. If you want something, ask the house where the spoons are. Ask permission. Like I've got a picture of myself hugging the tree on the back patio, and I asked permission from the tree before I hugged it. But this morning, the house woke me up. I opened my eyes at 7:30, and the door just, it's like, oh, okay.
Good morning.
For me. Good morning, house. Thank you.
And you've got a showing there, right?
I did a show for the winter solstice. I wanted to plan an art show when John Beckner told me about the mill. He was buying the mill and he wanted to do these music and art things. I had been working on a collection, and two of my friends passed away after I had painted the first couple of paintings, and they really encouraged me to like continue doing that style. And I was kind of insecure about it. Like, it's so weird, and are people going to get it? And they got it. So I lost unexpectedly two of my longtime close friends, and I say that they're my angels on the other side. But so John had told me about this thing and the mill, and I said, would I have an opportunity to show some of my art there? I'm working on this series. It's kind of mixes together, heavily influenced by music, and it mixes together my spirituality and just how I see things. Like when I imagine being protected, I visualize angels around me. And so I did the jazz band of angels. And then this collection is called Dead Armadillos in West Tennessee, which came about because of a conversation that I was having with our guy, Tim Reynolds. And
is that not a great Jacob Dylan album title? I'm just saying.
So
Jacob, take it.
I was talking to Tim one day on the phone, and he had sent me a video of some armadillos, and he's in Florida. And I was like, wow, that's wild. Like, I didn't know that armadillos had migrated that far east, because when I was growing up in West Tennessee, there were no armadillos. But 20 years later, there's armadillos there. And so Tim and I were talking about armadillos, as you do. And I said, I've only seen dead armadillos in West Tennessee. And Tim goes, oh, that would be a good song name. And I was like, ooh, or a collection. And so I looked up the spiritual significance of armadillos. And of course, they're covered in armor. And I sort of visualized my two angels as armadillos. They're here. They were protective over me in life. And so I can't even imagine what they're doing on my behalf on the other side, but they're encouraging me. Like I get a feeling when they're around me and when I'm doubting myself, they're saying, look, everybody knows you're crazy. Just fucking do it. Nothing happens until it is absurd in my mind. Like I sit and think and I visualize something and I, like the guardian aliens, I'm just sitting out on my porch, just listening to my meditation music and suddenly get this idea that kind of piggybacks off the jazz band of angels. And I'm thinking, well, as an adult, my angels have gotten a lot weirder. And I sit there and I visualize it until it is a complete finished product. And when I start giggling at the idea, that's how I know that it's just absurd enough. And so when I'm painting, I'm just like, hey, this is so stupid. What the fuck am I doing? There's a sock. What's the sock? Well, there's a whole story behind the sock. The missing sock. You know, the missing sock from the dryer is on the other side of the veil in an alternate universe. That's where it went. Origins was also inspired by Tim. And during COVID, Tim had sent me a few albums that he had recorded 20 years ago in his home studio in Santa Fe. You know, we were trying to find things to do. So we did like live streams from home during COVID, which was a lot of fun. But he's like, this is, you know, now's a good time for us to do these. So I listened to these albums that he sent me, and he sent me this one called Freak Song that we didn't release until last year. And I listened to it, and I think it's 7 or 8 tracks, and it's like all Tim Reynolds music defies genres. You know, you can't really put it in any box because Tim is just a brilliant musician and composer. I listened to it a couple times and it was so weird. It's like this, there's all these weird noises and like didgeridoo type sounds. And after I listened to it a few times, I called him and I was like, Tim, you've created the soundtrack of the creation of the universe. Like I could visualize creatures coming down from the great beyond, and there's a little alien and there's a camel and there's all this stuff. So I made a painting for Tim. The original Origins, I'll send you a picture of it. I think it's only like 24 by 30 inches. So fairly small compared to the big 5 by 5 foot ones that I've done. And it was just, I wanted to make it really cosmic and colorful. And just, I wanted to express how I felt listening to this album to Tim. Like, Tim, here's a gift. This gift is what I created because you inspired me with your music. And so when I started doing these big paintings, a neighbor of mine who's an artist left 5 huge 5 by 5 canvases for me that just kind of sat out on my patio for a while because they're just too big. And I was like, I want to paint big. And canvases are really, really expensive, especially that big. So that was just such a beautiful gift that she gave me. So I thought I want to do Origins, but bigger. And one of my struggles as an artist has always been to fill space. And I want to read this quote by the artist. I'm going to try and pronounce it right. Jean-Michel Basquiat. Mm-hmm. It says, art is how we decorate space and music is how we decorate time. And that's awesome. They work together, you know? And so when I listen to music visually, and I wanted to use Origins just as an experiment in filling in space, because I feel like I'll do the main subject of something and I want it completely full. I want to fill the space entirely. And so this is where the absurdity comes in. It's like there's an octopus climbing a monolith in the Sahara Desert. Like, what the fuck is that about? And my husband will look at this stuff and I just like giggle at myself. I just have so much fun. It's just coming up with something to put here. And I really, really love working with colors. So when you look at one of my paintings, I want you to be just like overwhelmed with the colors and how they work together. You know, everything is very, very intentional, even if it's kind of silly or fun or absurd. And in Origins, I've got a giant baby alien playing with blocks. And of course, we know that's how Stonehenge was built. He's wearing the sock. The missing sock. From the dryer. From the dryer. But I really use that as a way to fill space. So I just added in just silly elements, just things that I connect with on a spiritual level. I am connected to aliens, and I love octopuses for some reason. I have a theory about octopuses. But yeah, so Tim's music inspired me. Like I could see the universe coming together. And I don't think there's another musician on the planet that creates like he does. I almost feel like, and not to put myself on the level with Tim, but I feel like we think creatively in a similar way. Like I'm inspired by nature. nature and the supernatural. And
I think you have to be familiar with Tim to really get why this is important. By that point, I knew all of Tim's music, and I'd heard it, and I'd visualized whatever I'd visualized in it. And somehow I'd never visualized this, but it made perfect sense when he told me the story. I said, so what makes you go outside the box with this instrument that normally sounds, like you hear it and you go, oh, that's a guitar. And then there are things on the record where you're like, what is that? It's a guitar. It's just Tim. It's a guitar in Tim's hands. And he says, well, when I first got it, I couldn't afford an amp. So I would sit on my porch and I would listen to the birds and I would just try to make the bird sounds with the guitar. And I was like, poof, poof. Wow, they are bird sounds. Meow, meow. Listen to any Dave and Tim track and listen to what Tim plays in the background of Dave. He's making bird noises. That may not have been what he was thinking on every song, but a lot of them you'll go, oh yeah, once you hear that, you'll hear bird noises when you listen to the acoustic stuff Tim plays. It's like, he's listening to bird noises and going, I can do that. He's not thinking, what chords am I going to write? He's thinking, I'm making bird noises, dude. It's like, cool. And she has a bird thing. So that's why I'm like, it all comes full circle. And we don't know that at the time. It's only been recently we've gotten into the whole bird thing.
I'm the crazy lady hanging my head out the window at Home Depot and looking up the light and screaming, hi crow, hi crow, hi crow, hi crow, hi crow, because I know they can remember your face. So I try to make friends with the crows everywhere because they're going to look out for me. They make their presence big and known at times when, often when I'm going through kind of a hard time and they're like, hey, we got you. We got you.
When I see your paintings at the Crossmill Arts, because you have a bunch of them in there, and I told you there's one there that I'm in love with, and it's the one with the octopus and the lady just lounging there beside him.
Back corner.
Yes, I'm in love with that painting. I always come in and look at it. But when I look at all your other paintings, every time I look at it, I see something new. It's amazing to me that I didn't catch that. And the colors, the vibrancy of it, I can see the story that you've created in your mind. I may not know what the story is that's in your mind, but as it flows, I can see a story in there. And I love seeing your paintings. And when I first get to the mill, I usually walk around and look at your paintings.
Oh, thank you.
That's the truth. Because first of all, it puts me in a great mood. Because they're just so whimsical. And I don't know. Every time I see it, I see something new. And I love it. And the colors.
My first biography was about Van Gogh. I'm a huge Van Gogh fan. So I want to know about the Van Gogh's wheat fields with cypresses. What pulled you into that?
I can't pinpoint what it is. I mean, as an adult looking back, because I saw Van Gogh's work for the first time when I was 4 or 5 years old. I've always been a student. My mom had this art history book and I would just look through the pages and that's how I became familiar with art. And I just remember always when I'd pull out the book, I'd try to find the Van Gogh wheat field with cypresses. And, it wasn't sunflowers that pulled me in. It wasn't a Starry Night. It wasn't the cafe in Paris or whatever that cafe painting is. It was the simple nature. And as I grew up, so I was just always fascinated or drawn to Van Gogh. And as I grew up and started learning more about art and about his art, his process, I learned that he would just use various tools to paint. Like sometimes he would use a stick or whatever. And I loved that it didn't look like a photograph. I was not drawn to the paintings of the Renaissance where it's just this a bunch of people in a soft, dark room looking real. I wasn't if I want to see real, I'll just open my eyes. So I've never been impressed by realism, by realistic art, because it's all about the soul. And again, going back to music, it's like there's this Nashville songwriting formula. And it's, I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to say it's the A, the B, and the chorus, and the B, and the bridge, and whatever. And everybody writes a song like this. Not everybody, of course, but there's this formula. And to me, that's boring. You can hear whether or not a person's soul was invested in the writing. I was drawn to Van Gogh because I felt his soul. The first time that I saw Van Gogh in real life, two things happened. I cried. I saw the Blue Room and it was so much smaller than I expected. And so I was a little bit disappointed. Like I could feel it and I cried and I felt so connected to it. And then I was like, well, what the fuck? This is so small. Why would people paint so small? Like every time I start an art project, I'm like, I want a bigger canvas. I want a bigger canvas. I want a bigger canvas. And when I got the 5x5s, it's like this playground. I can do whatever I want on it. As long as I have enough paint, I can just fill it up with colors and things that make me happy and make me feel alive.
Any of you seen Letters to Theo?
Yes.
No.
That 1990s movie?
Yeah.
I must have seen that in the theater like 6 times. That is one of the most beautiful
Okay, it's
movies.
on my list now.
What it is it's the letters that he wrote to his brother, and it's told through the letters he wrote to his brother about this experience or that experience. So it's like going inside the head of Van Gogh. It is the most beautiful movie. You cannot help but cry coming out of that movie. But see that movie if you haven't, if you like Van Gogh. Letters to Theo.
And this is really controversial, I know, but the immersion experience, I know a lot of people were like, it's not really, it's replicas, whatever. But just to be surrounded by that and to
I think that's taking it to the next level. It's not, is it art like he painted? No. I mean, it is his art, but still it's becoming immersed in it. And how can that be a bad thing?
And the soundtrack for it was perfect. It was key. It was key.
So I used to go to the National Gallery, to the Rothko room, and some people say, well, you can only look at a painting for how long, Fluffy? And I said, well, you can look at it a lot of different ways, because I started getting in trouble when I would go in there and lay on the floor and put my feet up on the chair and look at it upside down for an hour. See if I saw anything different that I'd seen looking at it for 2 hours sitting on the bench. And I would just do that. And like I said, at first they come, sir, what are you doing? But after a while, I was like, oh, it's just Fluffy. He's not going to hurt anything. Just let him do whatever he's going to do. And I would go to the Roscoe room and lay in weird positions and just stare at the paintings, getting what I could from it. And if you're familiar with Roscoe, it's a depth of color. That's all it really is. There's no form. I mean, they're usually shapes, squares. I would try to immerse myself. It's like, okay, I've seen it this way. How can I see it some other way? I'm not allowed to touch it. I can't hang it upside down, but I could get upside down.
And then they created something just for you where you really can do that without security getting
right, exactly. So I'm like, I'm all for it. I was trying to do that stuff in high school in the 80s, and the National Gallery finally agreed that it was okay.
So this is our speed round. Instinctive answer. What is a completely irrational fear that you have?
Cotton balls.
I want you to just elaborate a hair.
Oh, I don't like how they feel. I can't touch them. I have to get somebody to get the cotton out of the pill bottle. I think it has to do with my early childhood. I had a lot of ear infections, and my mom would pull the cotton ball apart and stick them in my ears for the drainage. And I just remember the sound of it pulling apart. And yeah, that was childhood trauma.
Fluffy, what's something you're embarrassingly bad at?
Singing, for sure. I try it all the time because I love it, but I'm embarrassingly bad at singing.
Who do you think out of the two of you is most likely to survive a zombie apocalypse?
Me. Although she's more prepared for it. I swear to God, she's more prepared. She's waiting for it to happen. But I think I will survive it more than she will.
I actually had to unpack my run bag, like in case of emergency, and I have 2 gas masks in there, a solar-powered battery, and 10 changes of clothes. I have jugs of water. I used to think that and sorry, I know this is lightning. I will make this really quick. I used to think that I wouldn't survive the zombie apocalypse because I have poor vision and I sleep with a CPAP. But I'm finding ways around that because now I see with all my eyes.
Wow.
And I would just Mad Max it. I don't need anything. Give me a car. Give me this big Sprinter van. I'm going to drive across the country driving over zombies. I will survive as long as I can get gas.
See, I feel like you would protect her the whole way. the whole
If
way.
she'd sit in the car with me, she'd be screaming at me the whole time, Fluffy, stop driving so fast. I'm like, it really takes a lot to plow these guys down.
Yeah, you're going to be the one to throw me out of the van to the zombies. If you keep talking about my driving,
I'm open
throwing
the
you
door.
to the zombies. Yeah, you're the reason I don't survive the zombie apocalypse.
I told you she would go first, didn't I?
All right, I love this question. Okay, and I'm going to start with you, Mary, and I kind of want you both to answer this. If your life had a walk-on song, what is it?
Walking on sunshine.
I love that.
Well, I have two. It depends on which movie we're watching about me. If we're looking for the bouncy movie, it would probably be Chumbawamba, which everybody hates. But but that is that like powerful song that everybody gets up and goes, and it's got a positive message. You can hate it all you want for its kitschiness. It's I get knocked down, I get back up again. It's like, just keep going. You know, it's the final scene of the movie. But the opening scene setting the stage is probably Imagine by John Lennon.
Oh, nice.
If you could switch lives with someone for a week, who would you switch lives
I would
with?
never do. No, never.
What's something you believed way too long as a kid? Fluffy.
Gosh, I didn't believe much. It was gone. Everything was gone for me really early.
Okay.
I was in 6th grade reading Hunter S. Thompson books, literally reading Hunter S. Thompson books in 6th grade. So my parents always, like, if you have a question, ask us. We didn't play the myths of Santa Claus and all of that. Like, I'm sure I believed something about, oh, yeah, if you chew on a piece of cactus, it'll make your swollen lips get small. You know, something, I'm sure there was something like that growing up, myth that I heard. Because, I'm Indian, so we had, back to the nature thing we were talking about earlier, I was always into nature. So I was always looking for natural remedies and stuff. So I'm sure there's something there that I thought that I heard at one point when it's like, probably step on a crack, break your mama's back. I still try not to step on cracks. And my mom's not even alive anymore, and I still try not to do it. So I'm just saying, I guess that one would do. And I know it's not true, but you don't want to take that chance. You don't want to why take the chance? Exactly. So,
Mary, what about you?
That the patriarchy should be the standard by which we live our lives. It's time for the rise of the matriarchy.
And the great thing is, in my house, I knew my mom was in charge. Not because she told us. I could just see it as a kid. I knew my mom ran the house.
Well, we've been conditioned for 10,000 years to believe that men are the ones who are capable of running society. Pretty sure whatever they're doing is not working. And the thing about the matriarchy is that the women are not above the men. The women are equal to men. And together we work to protect the innocent, the marginalized, anybody who needs help. The patriarchy is all about keeping control over the people.
Who would get kicked out of a fancy event first?
Yeah,
Fluffy.
Probably Fluffy.
Yes, because you'd be back there very quiet.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to make everything okay.
Yeah.
I raised my hand. They're not putting that on me. I raised my hand before any of them gave the answer. I realized nobody can see that, but I immediately raised my hand when you asked that question.
Mary, what's something people misunderstand about you?
I think people might think that I'm rude because I do keep to myself a lot. I'm an introvert and I am highly sensitive to energy, and I'm not what I look like.
I don't think any of us are.
Yeah.
I think we all have masks on that we let the world see. And until we start talking like this, maybe even where the masks come down and we start to see the real people, the world sees us differently than we see ourselves. Always.
Dive bar or sold out venue?
Dive bar.
Oh, God, dive bar.
Empty dive bar, me and the guy playing on stage, and I'm way happy.
Yes.
Sold out show, I'll be there if I'm working. Otherwise, I don't want any part of it.
Late night inspiration or early morning clarity?
Late night inspiration.
But me too, for sure. I'm in this moment finding out a lot more about Mary.
That's awesome.
We're even closer than I thought we were. We are answering questions exactly the same. It's like, yeah, of course she does. Like, I would have predicted that about her, but my point is just to hear her say it. I'm like, yeah, we are literally like, we could be the male and female yin and yang of one another.
Well,
Oh
you
my
know what I
gosh.
want to know is the relationship between the two of you and what the collaboration looks like.
I can tell you from my perspective, and then she can tell you from hers. This will be interesting because I don't know if we've really ever. So my boss is Tim Reynolds, and then our booking agent was Hugh Southard, who has since passed. And that's where she and I started really communicating, was after Hugh passed, because she kind of took Hugh's spot.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she and I had more communication. But so when Hugh passed in 2020, right at the beginning, right before COVID, she took over for him. And so then we started communicating a lot more. I felt a kinship with Mary when I first started talking to her, because I felt like she's like me. She's buried here in the back. Nobody knows who she is, but she's working hard as shit. And that always impresses me when people take what they do really seriously and like want to do the best at it with no credit. You know, it's like, I don't get my name on an album cover for doing what I do.
I believe that the reason why he and I get along so well is that we're both introspective. And as far as like the industry, wanting to be a part of the industry, my first day at Belmont University in Nashville, I went to study music business there, and I had to go to student orientation or something. And I remember the guy who was doing the intro or whatever talking about networking, and I froze because I'm an introvert. And I just thought to myself, I'm in the wrong industry if I have to go and talk to people that I don't know. And so for me, going backstage, this whole like, you know, I want to be backstage where all the stuff's happening. I was always like, oh God, do I have to go backstage? Do I have to talk to anybody? Can I just like wave and say hello? That first day at Belmont, when I learned about networking, I was really terrified. I thought, and the guy said something like, look around you. This is the future of the music industry. You're going to be, you know, you've got heads of record labels and managers and da 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 da. And I'm like, I don't want to look around. I don't want to make eye contact. I don't know if this is the right thing to do. But I had switched to music business. I originally moved to Nashville as an aspiring singer-songwriter. I went to one open mic night. I didn't perform. I just wanted to observe. And I got panicky just thinking about having to perform in front of a Nashville audience because...
And she's a really good performer.
In my former life, I am going to revisit music in the future. But,
keep all doors open.
Oh, yeah. I'm doing everything now. No fear, no limits. I went to this open mic night and I was like, these people are really, really talented. And I think I wanted to shift gears to being support. Like Fluffy said earlier, like I want to help the people who are really, really talented. I'm a mediocre songwriter, and I say that as from a realistic perspective. I'm not Taylor Swift or whatever. I'm just a very, very simple person, and I don't like to make things complicated. But I was terrified. I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. I could perform in church in front of my peers and at parties and stuff. You know, it was like, oh, a girl guitar player. You know, it was kind of cool or whatever. But I couldn't do it. I was not a performer. And
I'm the same way. I can't. It's like 3 bands, 1 practice for each band, and then I quit. I'm really supposed to be a roadie. I really am. I knew it really early on.
I love it. I love getting the other side because none of what they do could be possible without that kind of support.
I grew up with a dad who is an amazing guitar player. Not probably as good as Tim Reynolds, but I mean, he was still, in my eyes, when you're a kid, your dad is the greatest. So he was the greatest guitar player I knew growing up. So when I took guitar lessons, I was like, I'm not as good as my dad on guitar, so don't want to be. So I switched to drums, and that I thought that would get me to be like, I can find my place here and even being a drummer. And all 3 of those bands I joined as a drummer. And I was like, okay, I can play drums, but I am not comfortable in this seat. It's a weird feeling. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like I was hearing tints of it when she was saying it, going, yeah, that's how I felt. I just knew that wasn't my spot for this trip, you know? And I was still in high school then, you know, like 10th grade. And I immediately started working for each of the bands that I didn't join because I was like, I still want to be here. I'll carry the gear. I'll drive the car. And I didn't drink and I didn't smoke. So it was like perfect. It's like, you always have a sober person to get you home. It was almost perfect. So it just worked out.
And I always need a sober person to get me home.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about being a sober person. You get a lot of free concert tickets in high school when you're the sober person.
Yeah.
Everybody bought me, hey, we bought you a ticket. You're going to drive, right? Yep. Amazing.
That's great. Well, the common thread is that a door opened and you knew you needed to go through it. You just weren't sure what direction to go once you got through it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank God you went through it,
Mm-hmm.
at least.
I go through every door that opens for me. I don't think once or twice. There are so many doors that I went through in a way that was uncharacteristic of me, being the introvert, not wanting to make waves or cause any trouble. A couple weeks before I started at Belmont, I had to go and show up for my internship work program. As part of my financial assistance, I had to work on campus. So I hadn't found a job yet. And I just, on a whim, I walked into the music business intern coordinator's office. And I said, is there a work study position available? And I got right in. They said, yeah, we need somebody. And one day when I was in this internship coordinator's office, the person that I worked for got a phone call and somebody was calling, and I could tell by what my boss was saying that somebody was looking for a receptionist. And the woman, I don't remember her name, said, essentially, our music business students are above this type of work. And when she hung up, I said, whoa. I'm not above this type of work. Can you tell me what the offer is? And she said, I think it was like $15 or $20 an hour to answer phones, 4 hours a week or something. And I said, I would like to do that, please. Could you give me the contact? And she's like, yeah, I guess so. So I made the call and I immediately got an interview with Renee McIntosh. I'm going to say her name because she's an amazing Leo. So she interviewed me. We talked for about 30 minutes and she was like, I want you. And I nearly immediately got a call back saying, we'd like to hire you for this position. And I was so excited. It wasn't Christian bookstore selling Bibles when I was hungover. And, I had this position. I just felt so official, and I'm working in the music industry. And that job led me to so many different, to meet so many different people. And I just, sitting at my little desk behind the phone, I felt really comfortable. Johnny Cash's son walks through the door and he's working on a project. He worked on his June Carter Cash's, I believe it was her last album. What was it called? I can't remember. It was on Dual Tone Records, but it was before Johnny or June had passed away. They did a Johnny Cash tribute album. And so I believe John Carter Cash would come in related to those two projects. But being behind, having a purpose, I'm here to help. How can I help you? Can I get you coffee? I felt so valuable when other people are like, it's just a receptionist position. And I never had any aspirations to run a company or be in charge or have any position of power because I didn't feel like that was my personality. I like to be in the background. I like to make sure that the wheels are turning and everything's working out. So for me, it was just such a fun experience to see who was going to walk through that door. One time I was not a proper receptionist. Apparently I let a homeless guy come in and take a bath in the men's bathroom. And when he came out, somebody from the office was like, Mary, there's a homeless man cleaning himself in our bathroom. And I was like, oh, I thought that was one of Dual Tone's clients.
I was going to say, when he came out, it might have been. They're like, oh my gosh, I know you. You're on our label.
And of course, I greet him and he's like, where's the bathroom? I'm like, right here, sir. Would you like some coffee after your bath? I didn't know what was happening.
After your bath.
And that's the same thing for tour managers. Everybody's heard, tour managers just glorified babysitters. Well, and you may have to be with certain bands. If you worked for Korn, I pretty much guess your job description is babysitting. But with TR3, I don't consider myself a babysitter. I'm a facilitator, just like she said. I have all their stuff planned out. They're loaded, so they don't have to think about it. They just have to get in the van, get there, set up, and play. They don't have to think about the minutia. They don't know what we're doing for dinner, but they know dinner's coming. They don't have to wonder about things. They didn't have to sit around. It's all about facilitating and making their life easier so they can do what they do better. It's really just that more than anything else for whoever it is. I mean, I've also been personal assistants for people, and that is a babysitting job. So there is, in my mind, a distinct difference. It always drives me crazy when they say you're a glorified babysitter. I said, it can be that, but that's not what I do. I'm not a glorified babysitter. I don't have to babysit my guys. Some tour managers may have to. I luckily don't have to.
I love that, because if it was something, if I would have gotten into the music industry in any other way other than radio, I would have totally wanted to be behind the scenes. As a DJ, I was good on the mic, but you put a camera out there, I get very nervous and worried. So I get that. I would love to be you behind the scenes. I think that's amazing, and I can understand that.
Well, I think it's something that a lot of people don't think about. And it's like, that's why I always feel like when I tell people, they're like, God, I never even thought about that. For every one of me, every band has one of me and one of Mary. Some have more, like DMB has so many. They've got chefs and all that. We don't have chefs on a TR3 tour.
Oh, I beg to differ.
We have John Beckner and
Big Chunk Catering.
Big Chunk Catering and John Beckner from time to time. But there's so much hired support. And I don't think people ever think about it, because everybody grows up wanting to be the rock star. Everybody's like, I want to be in front of the spotlight. You don't see people with their Instagram page going, destined to be a roadie. It's like, it's just not an aspirational mantra for a lot of people, is what I'm trying to say. But it was for me. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. I'm close with the bands like me, and I get to be there in this creative process and move it forward in whatever way that is. Just, nudge it or whatever. And I feel like I have my influence, whether it's overt or in most cases subtly. I'm not going back to being in the studio. I'm not telling them what to do, but my input is there. What did you think, Fluffy? And then I say something, and it either changes or doesn't change based on my answer. I've now affected how that song sounds. Whether I changed it or not, it stayed the same because I said what I said, or it changed, or we talked about it and it didn't. But somehow my influence is in there, at least in my mind. I mean, I don't know how deep people who listen to music think about that kind of stuff. But when I listen to music, I often wonder, how did this song get like this? I would love to have seen the behind the scenes for every one of my favorite songs. How did we get to this point? And you don't think about it until you're sitting in a studio watching something that you love come out like that, like you said, like a baby, and then going, wow, I saw that process. And then it makes you want to see the process for everybody else's. Like, I want to see how that happened. Sadly, there's not enough time in the world for me to visit that, but I think that is magical, because as we all know, everything we do, every moment, we said it this morning when we were leaving and we were trying to get here on time, and we're like, maybe something kept your door closed so you didn't leave 1 minute earlier and you didn't have a car accident because of that. Everything's interrelated. So just my presence at the studio, whether it's verbal or not, is somehow affecting what happens there. My energy is floating in that space with their energy. It's all cosmically melding. Yeah, exactly. And so no one's ever going to listen to a TR3 album and go, oh, I hear Fluffy's influence. But I do. When I hear it, I know my influences. I know it's there. And that's enough for me. That feeling, that pride I take when somebody says, God, I love that song. I was like, I was a part of that. Whether I'm not playing one of the instruments, but I was a part of that. So, and that is important to me. That feeds my soul, makes me sleep at night, and it makes me feel like I'm contributing to the world in a positive manner. Because when people like something, that's what we're doing. We're trying to bring love into a world that's missing it. So when things make people happy, you got to feel like it's affecting them in a positive way. And I like being a part of that. So, and if I can't do it on the drums, I'll do it by helping the drummer do that. So
I think one of the best stories of the behind the songs was the Queen documentary when they talked about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Oh my God. How
I watch every music documentary I can just for those kind of nuggets, because you never know what you're going to get. I'm constantly on YouTube watching the behind the music of something just because.
Oh, I can't stand those things. I don't like to watch the behind the scenes things or music documentaries. I don't watch.
Really?
No, it makes me feel uncomfortable.
You're such a Gemini. I love it.
Oh my God. I don't know what it is. It just.
Is it like too intimate?
Because I recognize patterns, I feel like, I'll watch 5 minutes of it and I feel like I've got it figured out. I don't. I mean, I don't know everything. Like, I don't want to hear about the journey.
And music's a very personal thing. So you have to remember that everybody's experience with it is different. Mm-hmm. For me, I wonder about the creative process. She's reveling in what she hears,
in the magic,
and what they talk. Yeah, and what they talk about might destroy that for her. She says, I don't want to know there was an argument and they broke a beer bottle because that disturbs what I've built in my head. What I take away from this doesn't need that. So I can totally respect that appraisal. But for me personally, I know how I've affected it. So I wonder who's affected their thing. When they talk about, we didn't record it in a recording studio. We set up in this old house, and you got to feel like, God, what spirits and ghosts were going on in that house when they recorded Led Zeppelin 4? It's like, I love seeing the behind the scenes. And that's probably because I'm behind the scenes. So I like seeing other people's behind the scenes. It kind of normalizes what I do in a way. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not the only one.
One of my favorite documentaries in the whole world is It Might Get Loud.
It's a great one.
That is one of my favorites. I could watch it over and over again.
I want to talk a little bit about the start that you had in record stores with your dad.
That's how I knew from a young age music was what I was going to somehow be involved in. My dad was a musician. My mom also worked. We grew up really poor. My dad didn't have any kind of fancy jobs. And as a side hustle, he met my mom playing in a band in California. So it's always been a part of my life. And then as a youth, when my mom was working and my dad had a gig, me and my sister would have to go with my dad to these bars and watch my dad play for, pennies on the dollar. But it was always fun, and he would bring us up and we would sing a silly song with him or something. So it was always there. And then on weekends, we would go record shopping at garage sales and stuff. And he got me into vinyl really early, and I became a record collector. And I think that's the Virgo in me. He just wants to collect. And I figured out really early, again, we're poor. It was like, you want a lot, you're going to need to get a job. So I had a job really early on. And again, like I said, the Kemp Mill hired me because I was going in there all the time. And they were like, hey, you know a lot about this. You should work here. And I was like, okay. And then I was getting records at a discount. And it was like, and then I just started moving from record store to record store in Georgetown. And so records have always kept me in that scene. And to something she said earlier, she was saying you never say no to any doors. And she made that comment about somebody walking in. Oh, so you're just the receptionist. That is so not the way you look at anything. In this business, the receptionist may be the reason you got signed.
Right.
Talk to many artists who go, so-and-so had that tape on their desk and was listening to it and their boss walked through. In this business, you don't know what it's going to be. Like, people can tell you stories of how, if it hadn't been for so-and-so, I would have never even gotten this or that or whatever. So I just took any job I could get that kept me around music where I didn't have to do what I called a real job. I was like, you pay me to stand behind a counter and tell people what to buy and I get paid for it? This is great. And then I manifested that into DJing, of course. And I didn't get to 930 Club until Penguin Feather closed in Georgetown. They closed. The chain shut down.
Yeah.
And I was in a funk. And I went down to 930 Club to have a drink and lament with my friends. And they're like, what's up? And I'm like, Penguin Feather's closed. I got to find a job. They're like, well, you should work here. And I literally took that job thinking, this is not a good fit for me, but I need to do something for money.
Fluffy, I just remembered the last show I saw there. I don't know if I told you this. It would have been probably somewhere around 89, 90. Were you there yet?
Yeah, at the F Street one.
Yes.
Okay.
Bismarcky.
Nope, I did not.
Such a good show.
Oh, and this one will kill you. I got to be Prince's bodyguard in 930 Club one night.
I can't.
Because his bodyguards couldn't fit in. And he was like, yeah, this is not, he came to a show. I can't even remember what show. And we didn't talk that night. I don't even think he remembered that I had met him before at that point. But Jarrett, our manager, knew, oh, if this is a job for Fluffy. Fluffy's met him before. It'll be fine. And their security guards walked him into the office, and he introduced me to him. And he said, we just kind of want you to hang out next to him. You know, you don't have to do anything. Just be there. They didn't want him standing in the room with two ginormous bodyguards next to him. And me in my 930 staff shirt didn't look out of place. So we just sat, you remember the window boxes?
Yeah.
We just sat in the window box in the back by the water fountain under the fan and watched whatever band was playing together for the whole night. It was so cool. But had I not taken that job, that door that opened, you know, it became my life. It became a part of my identity. And when I took that job, I didn't think it was going to last just till I find another job. Would I have gotten to TR3 if I hadn't worked at 930 Club? Because it's David Wellbeloved, who knew me from training him at 930 Club, that got him to call me to work for Tim Reynolds, which is where I eventually wanted to be. I didn't know it was with Tim Reynolds, but I knew I wanted to be with a band that I felt strongly about, that I wanted to put my energy behind. And here I am, because I got fired from Penguin Feather, took a job that I didn't want to take at 930 Club, fell in love with that job, trained a guy who called me to work for Tim Reynolds, and here we are.
So I know, of course, you're TR3's manager and Tim Reynolds' manager. Is there any other bands or...
I do work for, separately, I work for Tim's booking agency, and I do contracts and financial stuff. And I don't really have any interest in managing any other artists. When I meet an aspiring artist who's looking for direction, I'm glad to kind of consult them, or if somebody comes to me and says, you know, I've got this offer, whatever, I'll review a contract and just kind of help mentor them a little bit, but not as a job, because I feel like there's so many ways that artists now with technology can really do a lot more for themselves than they used to be able to. And when I meet an aspiring artist, there's kind of a litmus test for me. If they are looking to become famous, I'm kind of like, I'm not even going to bother, because if you're a musician and you're going to do anything with it, it has to be a compulsion. Like, you have to be, I am compelled to create,
sincere,
and share,
has to
and
be
sincere.
From a sincere place.
Yeah. Because if your end game is to become famous, like, I don't want to have anything to do with you, because that's not really my thing. And Tim is just a perfect example of that. I didn't meet Tim in person until 2009 or 2010, but I'd been working for him, kind of at assisting his manager. I got hired at the booking agency, and I printed out the roster and I memorized the roster, and I was given like a VIP caller list, and I memorized that because, like I've shared with y'all, I don't pay attention to music. I don't know, you know, people expect me, because I work in music, that I should know all these different musicians and stuff. So when I heard the name Tim Reynolds, I had no idea who he was, but I knew that he was a priority caller, and he and Hugh Southard had been friends for so long, and they had this long history, and Hugh started booking and managing Tim with his new TR3 iteration in 2007. And Tim called the office. He asked for Hugh Southard, and I patched him through or whatever. And I just thought, I just got this feeling, and I was like, I would do anything for this man. He's sweet. He said, you know, he sounds so sweet. He's just so genuine and sincere. And I came from working in Christian music and country music in Nashville. I didn't love the vibe of that scene. I'd been working for an entertainment attorney part-time, 8 to 1, and then I worked as a nanny in the afternoons from like 2 to 6 or something. And that family, the nanny family, was relocating to Charlotte. And as I said earlier, like, I was jaded earlier, and at that point I was like, I think I need to do something that's more beneficial for the world. Like, I need to find my purpose, and I'm not sure it's music, because I kept like I was dipping my toes in and out of it. You know, I decided I wasn't going to perform, and then I was like, well, I'm going to be of service. I'm going to help the artists who I want to be support. I want to be the support staff. I want to be the person who just helps them. And I spoke to Tim Reynolds on the phone and I was like, I love him. And I committed myself to do whatever I needed to do for him because I felt like he deserved it. I felt like he deserved the support of somebody who just really, really saw him for who he was. He's just a brilliant, brilliant person. And beyond music, beyond composing, he is just so well read and just so easy to talk to. So yeah, I committed to working for him without knowing who he was.
Mary, you and I have talked about feeling and being an empath. Mm-hmm. And you talked about when you paint, you listen to music, you like to paint music. Mm-hmm. When you paint your pictures, how do you want them to feel what you feel?
When I paint something, I feel a certain way about it. It's done when I feel giddy about it, when I feel like, oh, this, looking at this makes me feel happy. And so I asked my husband after I finished the Guardian Aliens painting, what do you feel when you look at this? Because I know what I feel when I look at it. It's me on canvas. And he said, I feel you. I feel your spirit, your personality. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want you to feel. I want you to feel me. I want you to feel my expression of joy and love and whimsy and, the connection to nature and to spirit. So yeah, I want them to feel who I am and to feel comfortable. I want people to feel comfortable and maybe courageous, like be brave, be courageous, do the things that you feel compelled to do. Art is such about expressing the things that can't be said with words alone. And I'm a word person too. I like to write, but nothing makes me happier than seeing a bunch of pretty colors on a canvas.
Well, I told you how I feel when I see it.
Aww.
I feel you.
Yeah.
I do.
The one you picked out, that orange is so bright.
So my friend Aaron, who was a big art supporter of mine, supporter of my art and music all throughout childhood, he and my friend Steven, who I've honored with his collection, I think I mentioned, Aaron had asked me to recreate a painting by the artist Fernando Botero. So I looked into this guy a little bit, and the name of the painting was called The Letter. This woman was lying on the bed reading a letter. And so he said, I want you to recreate this painting for me, but do it in your style and make it like all cosmic and shit. And I didn't do that while he was alive, but I did it after he was gone to honor him. Like, God, I know I sort of didn't get around to doing this, but I still want to do this for you. And in the original painting, the woman's lying on a bed in a bedroom reading a letter, and it's just like a normal bedroom scene. And I really love octopuses. Octopi. I have a theory about octopi. I feel like all drummers alive on this planet came from a subterranean race of octopus type people that exist underneath the surface of the moon Europa, which is Jupiter's largest moon. I don't know where that came from. It was just whatever. Because drummers can work all their limbs independently. And it's like, and my husband's a drummer.
My husband's a drummer.
Oh, wow.
Riveted right now.
They work their, all their limbs independently. And it's like, oh yeah, well they used to have 8 limbs. They had 8 limbs in their last life on Europa. So that's why they're just like, they can do all this stuff. So I think about octopus being drummers being octopus people from Europa. I have no idea where that came from. I watch and consume so much. A lot of alien stuff and some conspiracy stuff, but I just sort of absorb things and then I like translate them for my brain to process. But so I was like, I'm going to throw the octopus in there. It's an homage to Aaron, and my husband's a drummer, and I just wanted to see them floating into the mystic.
Well, I can't wait to go and see it again tonight. Because now I have different eyes to look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it ever goes missing, it could be me. If you're creative and listening to this,
we want your story.
the messy one,
The real one.
the one you don't usually have the opportunity to share. I'm Johni.
I'm Jess.
You're on the hook.
sure to follow us on social media at Johni and Jess on TikTok, and you can find The Hook with Johni and Jess on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.